back to another episode of World Bigfoot Radio. Welcome back. We have returning guest Robert Boston, formerly Bigfoot in Germany, now Bigfoot in Germany, residing in Nevada. And he had some interesting notes on one of the shows that we did quite a while back now with Robert Kreider. And I was talking to him on the phone afterwards. And he had so many really brilliant things to say about all the stuff that Kreider had mentioned. I said, hey, why don't you just come on the show and share all of your show notes with everyone on this one? So this is basically Bigfoot in Germany responding to and in many cases agreeing with all the stuff that Kreider was talking about when he was on here. So again, welcome back to the show, Robert. Great to have you back, buddy.
Hey, thanks, Duke. It's been a while, actually, hasn't it?
Quite a while.
Days are running together.
I know you lost part of your memory when you got shoved down the stairway by that puckwoodgie recently.
Busted me up pretty good.
Yeah. If you're wondering what the mark on his eye and his forehead is, he's probably got a broken bone there in the occipital right now from the horrible fall he took down the stairway, and many other parts of him bruised and banged up, ones that do not bear showing on TV.
We're not going to say those. Yeah, I bounced my face off the edge of the stairs and the floor. So,
ouch.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is one of those brutal steep stairways, and it's not very short. And if you lose it, it's going to hurt a lot.
A long way down, man.
Yeah.
Right into the wall. It was a good fall. But hey, old man Death didn't get me again.
Yeah.
I survived another one.
That's probably why you're surviving at this point. He just doesn't even bother to show up. He gets the call in.
I think he's getting
Boston's about to die again. He's like, call me if he's actually dead. I'm not
sure he will. Yeah, I know my guardian angel probably smokes meth by this point, but he's at least an alcoholic.
He gets combat pay.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, wow, that was quite a night.
Well, anyway, getting back to the paranormal Bigfoot goodness that we're going to be discussing here, one of the main things that you brought up was the part where Mr. Kreider was talking about how in South America, the mini flotilla of ships from Europe showed up, and for the first couple of days that things were sitting at anchor, they couldn't even see them.
Yeah.
They're sitting there right out in plain sight, but the natives couldn't see them.
Maybe they had canoes or something, but I guess they just didn't recognize her. I don't know. That one really spun my head. And then he mentioned about them being able to maybe manipulate our brain into not being able to see them. And yet many of the cameras that we use are able to see it. It's just, I've had way too many electronic instruments that I've been using in the field tell me there's one standing right next to me, and yet I couldn't see it, but I could follow it with the antenna. So pretty wild. That was pretty wild.
I know we got a local researcher here that's been using the EM meter for a while now, and he just drives up to this area where he knows they're around, sits there in his truck, turns everything off. He puts the EM meter on the dashboard. When it starts going off, he can tell a cloaked one is nearby.
There you go. There was one time I had gone out with my now ex-sister-in-law, and she was we were right in the middle of the structures. And there was one that they had taken a tree, completely stripped it, and put it in the fort of two other trees, and then landed 3 trees propped up against that. I hadn't seen that one before. And so I'm looking at this thing, and all of a sudden my EM meter goes off, and I'm looking at it, and it's going like 1600 millivolts, and I'm like, what the heck? And then it started to go down. And so I started to move it around, and it started going back up again. And I ended up like following this thing all over where the structures were. And then my sister-in-law says, because there was a teepee structure there, and she wanted to walk under it. And I said, you can if you want, but if you end up in Detroit, it ain't my fault. She walked through it, but unfortunately she was still there.
Well, Well, Detroit missed out on a good one there.
Right?
Anyway, getting back to what the initial thing was with the huge masted sailing ships sitting out there at anchor in clear sight. I mean, there's nothing out there but sky and water and
And
these
these big
giant
flipping boats.
anomalous objects. And yet, for the first couple days, the natives apparently could not see them at all. Then, like the third day or so, they went, "What are those giant things out there?" You know?
Right?
And it makes the case for pattern recognition, which is one of the things that Bigfoot can use to easily screw with us because we just don't expect to see them. Our
Exactly.
brain isn't set up to recognize them. We don't look at animal books that say cow, tiger, elephant, Sasquatch when we're little kids and get it set in our brains, right? We don't see them on nature shows and stuff. Our brains aren't programmed to think they're real or know what they look like. So
Right.
all they have to do is stand still.
Stand still and we
And
just
we think
walk
it's a
right
bush
by.
or a tree or a stump or whatever, and we just keep going.
Exactly. Which actually brings to mind that picture that was caught on a game cam up in Bremen. There was well, it looked like a stump, but it had a perfectly surprised look on its face, and it was bent way back, trying to get away from what appears to be a white lady ghost, and it was standing in front of this tree, and the tree freaked out, and that was caught on a game camera. But I'll bet you, if you walked through there when that happened, you probably wouldn't see either one of them.
I wonder what triggered the game cam, the woman in white
Or
what?
the surprised stump.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really weird. It was a weird
So
one.
that was in Bremen, Germany, right? What year was
Yes,
that?
that
You know,
was in
do you
Germany.
remember?
About 2019, 2018, somewhere around
Yeah,
that area.
that's a very strange picture.
Yeah, it really is. But yeah, the one of the other things that Robert Kreider talked about was like thoughts and images and stuff being transferred from us to technology like video cameras. And that also happened with my sister-in-law that same day. We both had identical cameras, but I told her what she should expect as we scanned this tree line, and that's what she got. But I scanned the tree line at the same time, and we ended up with completely different video. I don't know how the heck that happened, but I understand that they can manipulate video, and especially like screenshots. That is really intense. But that really freaked me out because she was able to record exactly what I told her that she would expect to see. You would think that's just, it's just an electronic device. It's got a sensor in there and it's got a lens on it, that whatever's there, it should be able to record, not stuff that's coming out of your head onto video.
Mm-hmm.
That was very weird. That was a very weird little experiment that I did.
Or stuff that's coming out of their head onto your video, where they're
Onto
manipulating it, erasing it, making it fuzzy wuzzy so you can't see anything, distorting it, changing the background on it, which they did a piece of my video. If you guys go look at the one where it shows the tree peaker that Eric caught, where he was ducking behind the tree to get off the frame of the camera. That's actually facing away from the road toward the river.
Right.
And I showed that to Robin McCrae and I believe Blaine Tyler, and we were all looking at it. And then the second day we went back and looked at it, suddenly the background had changed. It's facing 180 degrees the opposite direction toward the road. You can see one of our vehicles on the road. That absolutely was not there because there was other weird anomalous things in the background that we were remarking on and going, well, we got to take a closer look at this tomorrow. What is this blue glowy thing in the background?
Right.
Well, the next day it's not there. There was another big Sasquatch in the background too, also not there. And when I get a chance to get up there to that teepee, I'm gonna go film from the same spot and show you that it's not facing that direction.
Around
Right.
there. The wind gods must be crazy.
that's just that is so weird. You know, it actually reminds me of that physicist that I spoke to that was talking about how all points of time converge at any given point, and it can be manipulated. That was one of the things that actually like drove me out of the field. That and getting zapped all the dang time, because if you can't even trust your own video or still shots, how are you going to prove this thing is real to the general public?
Yeah. I mean, it's one thing to have an expectation and, like, okay, we should see some over here if we're filming over here.
Right.
Okay, maybe it is coming from her mind onto the film. A lot of the stuff that I get is random. I don't know I'm filming them. I don't even find them. Somebody else finds them in the video and goes, dude, there's one right here.
Right.
So that's not me making them appear on the camera.
Exactly.
A lot of the time I'm concentrating on, hey, there's a cool structure here, and I'm trying to film it or something, and there they are in the background.
Mm-hmm. The weird thing about it was when I got hit in the head by that orb, it was like being possessed. That was weird. But once I got rid of that, there was like a remnant or a trace left behind. And that is seeing their energy signatures. So it's like a glowy thing, wherever they literally stand out like neon. But again, about 90% of the time, it was after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean they're really there, or is our brain being manipulated?
Well, they're really there as much as they're really there. Robin McCrae also can see the energy signatures. She's always been able to. And she was just over in Michigan with the film crew over there doing a bunch of nighttime stuff. And you'll be able to see that coming out on another documentary film here shortly. You can already see the trailer for it on YouTube. I'll drop the link in here. But she was out with these guys that had all this really nice night vision gear,
right?
Starlight and FLIR. And they're ready to film at night and the whole thing, And she's sitting there going, well, there's one right over there, because she could see the energy signature.
The energy signature.
So they're trying to get their film gear on it and stuff, and it's moving, and she's mind speaking with them, and hey, there's one over here and stuff. And some of them they could see. They actually could see them with the FLIR and everything. And there were other ones that she could see them with her Starlight vision, and they couldn't see them on FLIR.
Right.
Like somehow they can block FLIR, they can make cold out or something.
I've seen that done with Chris Connor down there in the Trail of Bigfoot. They were using he's got a really nice FLIR unit, and I could see it. Instead of it being hot, it was cold, but it was moving. That was. I wish I remembered which video that was, but he had his wife and a whole bunch of friends out there. That thing was walking along a riverbank, but it was cold. I was like, wow, they can block FLIR.
Yeah, apparently that's what was going on here. Some of them they're picking up and other ones they weren't. And, Robin said with this, the goggle headset she was wearing was just ridiculous. She could see everything on them. She could see their eyelashes, She could see their chest moving. She could see their skin. She could see everything. And so she's like, there's one right there. And they're looking at it, the FLIR going, there's nothing there. And she's like, the hell there isn't.
Yeah. Oh, man. That is sore.
Yep. Trip down the stairway by Puckwood. You got to look out for them pucks, man.
Face first. Face first.
They force you to drink a bunch and then they shove you down the stairway.
And they push you down the stairway.
Just like leprechauns. You got to look out for them.
Exactly. Exactly. The little green.
So, yeah, there's so much of this weird, Robin's talked about that too, their ability to manipulate video. And so far, I haven't experienced much of it other than the one we were just talking about, where they somehow switched the background on the damn thing. But I've had them erase 3 different pieces of video that I was filming, and they were all in sequence. Walking up a trail past this abandoned cabin by myself. Walking back down by myself. And when we got down to the bottom, there was this tall tree that had these 3 peculiar nests in it. And I was trying to film them. And that one didn't come out either. There's just nothing there. It skipped those files. There aren't even numbers there. It's just like What?
That's the same thing happened to me with when I got my new camera, the big one. I wanted to see what its capabilities were, so I just set it up on a tripod and was shooting into a sunset right next to this cottonwood tree. And that thing, and then I just playing with my dog while it was shooting video for about 10, 15 minutes. But when I walked back towards the camera, there had been something that was like coming out of the tree. It kind of looked like Scooby-Doo, but that's what I call cartoon mode. But as I walked back to the camera, it got sucked right back into the tree. I watched it on the screen because I wanted to see what because I was just shooting into the sunset. And I saw that and I went, oh my God. I grabbed the camera and let's go home and download this, put it on the laptop. It was gone. It was flipping gone.
That's the same thing that
and
happened with
the
that,
number was gone. In fact, the next time I shot video, it skipped that number. It's just like, really? Come on, guys. Oh man. But
I've heard about that from other sources before too. The Bigfoot, especially, like being able to hide in trees somehow.
Like inside it.
Inside the, yeah, and I don't know.
The first thing that showed up was two eyes popped open, and it was like looking around, and then it started to like literally form as it was coming out, and then bing, right, like a rubber band, sucked back into the tree. That is like that's weird, man. That is like really weird.
Well, that's kind of what that Bremen picture looks like too, and it makes you wonder if what triggered the game cam was maybe the Bigfoot hiding into the tree to get away from the ghost.
Exactly. Yeah, that is a weird one. That is a weird one. Oh man. Yeah, there was quite a few things that he touched on, and I wrote them down in my notebook, and for the life of me, I cannot find that thing. There was like 8 bullet points on it. But the manipulating our brain into not seeing them was one of the things that he spoke about, and it actually made an awful lot of sense. If they could do that, other than just changing their vibration to a higher rate, higher than what our eyes are capable of seeing, if they could like literally manipulate the noodle, I mean,
yeah.
That's nuts.
Well, we've had those that can speak to them, ask them questions about this kind of weird stuff, and as you might expect, the answer you get isn't the one you wanted.
Right.
And of course, the question that we had first off, the most important one, is how do you guys cloak? And the answer was pretty much what you would expect. They gave us the actual answer, but it didn't help whatsoever. And the answer was we bend light.
There you go.
So yeah, okay. I got a picture of that. Sonny took it at Coloma. That was in a couple episodes ago. We were at Coloma again, and we were trying to find that exact spot where she got that picture of that entity standing there, reaching out toward her, bending the light around it.
Yeah.
So we could get the comparison shot. And for the life of us, we could not find that place. We know like almost literally exactly where it should be. And we walked around there for an hour and couldn't find it. Okay. And that's like pretty much impossible with both of us with the picture with us walking around these little rock piles in this one certain area hillside that we were on and trying to find it. And there was nothing that matched up with it. Now, here's the other thing that drives it home. She got 2 pictures. That was the coolest one because you could see the other Bigfoot in the background. Over the cloaking figure's shoulder, there's one sticking its head around a tree about 30 feet behind looking, and he's right out in the open. You can see his head, which makes us think it was a Bigfoot because there's a Bigfoot back there watching the cloaking one coming up trying to count coup on Sonny, apparently what he was doing.
That's crazy.
But can we match up the background? No. So she's got this other picture, and it looks like a split screen. And it was taken at the same time with the camera within a minute or two of when this picture was taken. And there's the top of a big boulder, and there's the ground on the other side, and you're like, what?
Right.
What the hell? So we figured we'd never be able to match that up, trying to find a weird thing like that. Within 5 minutes of being there, Mike found it. He goes, here's the rock right here. And I'm like, how the hell can you tell? And he's looking at the picture, and he goes, Okay, see the side of the rock over here? It's got this black stain that comes down on it. He points to it and he goes, and it's got a pine needle on it. See the pine needle? And he points to the pine needle. This is like 3 years later. The pine needle's still stuck on this little mossy patch on
Good
this
grief.
rock. Yeah, you would think the wind or the snow or the rain would have knocked it. No, it's still there.
Something, yeah.
Yeah. He points right to it and he goes, there it is. And I'm like, my God, you're right. So he takes a picture of the whole boulder pile. And if you guys want to see that, you can go back and look at it. Because what she's filming, this boulder is kind of oblong. She's getting the top of this piece over here, and she's getting the ground over here.
So there was something standing in front of it.
Yeah.
Blocking it, and
completely split the picture. It put the one side of the screen looking down and the other side looking up.
How in the world did they do?
And she did it with a cell phone. So, this is just a cell phone picture. And all her other pictures came out normal, including the ones that had Bigfoot in the background that we spotted later.
Right.
So, yeah, they were following me and her while we walked right from the standing stones to the next big pile of stones, and directly from that to where their tree structures are.
Right.
There's no trail. I know where all this stuff is. I already been there. So we just beelined it right from one thing to the other, which probably got their attention.
Probably.
So, yeah, we also found an interesting thing when we were up there. If I can find the picture, I'll show it. But it was a little pine tree, about as thick around as my thumb at the top of it.
Right.
And somebody had tied the top of the tree into a knot.
I've seen that, actually.
That's
It was
really
like
weird.
a single overhand knot, and that tree
Yep.
was about 3 inches thick.
Yeah.
It was like, like my height, my where my head is, and take a 3-inch pine tree and tie it in a single overhand knot. I mean, I couldn't even do that with like, a green twig without breaking it. And yet it's like they somehow was able to turn it into rubber, bend that thing in any way that they want to, and then I'll get out of here. And then be able to tie the thing in a knot and then make it solidify again.
And it solidifies again. It makes you wonder if they're doing that with some kind of an energy manipulation, because a lot of the tree structure stuff they make, we just literally can't build it. And it's not because of the weight consideration. It's just because it's like impossible. They can take some of these trees that are, they're brittle, that they don't bend. If you try and bend them, they'll snap. And yet somehow they can make an arch out of it, and they don't even fracture the bark or anything.
Nothing. Yeah.
How the hell do they do that? It's obviously not natural.
Exactly. That one photo, my ex is standing under a beech tree, which is very, very dense hardwood, and that structure is probably 50 feet long, and it's 3 times her height. So, and they bent that thing into an azimuth. It was a pointer, and then put a couple of logs on the top of it on the ground, and to hold it that way.
Pinned down. Yeah.
And how do you bend? It's about a 6-inch diameter tree. How do you bend a hardwood? It just.
Well, I got one from up here. Do you have that picture? Can you send that one over?
Yeah.
Send that one over, and I'll try and find this one and put it up too. This is from right here, about 3 miles from where I'm sitting right now, right up at the top of the not at all spookily named Mount Sentinel, which has a whole gang of Bigfoot living on it. Yeah. One of my friends was up there, and he had Rich Soul with him, and one of the other local guys, and they were walking around looking for structures because Rich is good at that. And oh boy, did they find some structures. And one of them was an entire lodgepole pine bent into an arch and pinned down with another entire lodgepole pine. And it's freaking huge.
Crazy.
How in the hell do you do that? And you could tell the other log was like, that's not from there. Somebody moved a whole damn tree into place just to pin this thing down. And how did they bend it and pin it down to start with? Yep. If the one on the ground had fallen in the path it was laying on, it wasn't anywhere near this one up here. It couldn't have caught the top and took it down.
And if it did, you'd have all kinds of busted.
Yeah, there's trees in the way on this side. So somehow this thing got bent down, and this other one, and there's no stump or root ball or anything there. Where'd it come from?
There was, that one video that I shot that had what I call the Grand Auditorium That was a very interesting place because they had built an archway out of 3 different sized trees that was leaning up against like that. So there was, on this side there was 3 different sized trees, but the top one, they were stacked. That top tree was like 3-4 feet in diameter. So it was a really, really old tree. And the length was probably 50 feet on that one. Well, one of the last times I had gone out there, that tree was missing, and the other 2 that was there blocked the entryway into that area. But I mean, we're talking a tree that probably weighed 30,000 pounds, and it's gone. And there was no like chainsaw dust, sawdust or anything like from, in case the foresters had gone in there. There were no drag marks. It was just missing. So I don't know. They either floated it out of there or picked it up and, hoisted it on their shoulders and just took off with it. I saw way too much of that stuff over there.
One of the things we got to try and film when we get back up there next week again is find the giant seesaw. Teeter totter. It could be natural. It sure doesn't look like it.
Right.
There's a boulder, and on each side of the boulder, there's a big, thick tree growing right next to it.
Right.
And there's this other tree that's about that big around that's laying perfectly balanced across it with no root ball or anything.
Teeter totter for the kids, I guess.
Yeah, or the adults, they could use it
right.
too. But we found that and we're like, okay, that's peculiar in and of itself that it just happened to land just right so it's balanced
perfectly balanced.
But there's no root ball. There's no hole that this thing came out of.
That's nuts.
That was actually scary. It's like, it would take a lot of heavy-duty logging equipment to move that damn thing.
Right.
And then to just, let's just slide it right along this, and there was a gigantic arch coming up the hill toward it, too. So, derp, and we found a couple of tracks of 15, 16-inch tracks on our way up there. So, yeah. It's above the hill from where the kids have their playground, essentially, which doesn't surprise me. It's probably part of it. We just haven't bothered to go back there again because the first time we found it was by accident, and it was very alarming because the first thing we run into is the 6-story X structure.
Look at that. How's it look from below? You hear that, folks? Wow. Oh, we're coming to check it out.
This one's still on the ground and pushed over. Or fell over. And this one just pushed over. Or fell over.
Making a magical structure. They just happen to all go right in between the fork of that tree.
Yeah.
Of all the places they could fall, right into the fork of that tree.
Oh, it's totally coincidental, just like that huge teepee we're going to go check out.
Yeah, yeah. Coincidence happens naturally.
Yeah.
And the leaner's on the other side of it from us, and we're like, oh crap, we're in the stay outside.
Yeah.
And we weren't sure where we were. This is when Caveman and Kevin were up there, and we had taken a new route around this area, just me and Mike, and got turned around, and we weren't sure which direction it was back to the camp we weren't even staying at that year, but at least we knew where we were if we got back there.
Right.
So we were like, okay, I guess we got to go uphill so we can figure out where the hell we are, get up to the top of the hill. You can see the rest of the valley. Which direction do we need to go? So on the way up there, then we found the huge arch, and we found some other, structures, and then the seesaw and a couple of footprints. We're getting more and more alarmed. And stuff's getting more and more epic and scary looking. And finally we get up to the top, and you could tell there was somebody following us. You could feel it.
You could feel it.
And then
Yeah.
we could get a direction, and it's like we need to go that way. Okay, there's a game path that goes down the hill that way, down the mountain that way. Let's just follow that game path. And then sure enough, we came to the logging road and made it back out again. But that was, we discover all this stuff just because we got lost.
Like teeter-totter, there was one structure over there that, so like the east side of the meadow, that's the area where, call him Bubba. That's where his group is at. But there was a tree that was probably 6 to 7 inches in diameter, woven through this grove of trees, like literally, right through the trees, and both ends of that tree was completely off the ground. There's no root ball there. There's no hole left behind, and yet this thing was, not only was it woven through the trees, it was woven through the trees into a curve. So there's absolutely no way on earth that thing fell into, because it was curved. It was woven and curved. I don't even know where they got the tree from. I mean,
that was one of the markers we found when we went up to our prime research area. We were going up the pass, and I went, wait, stop, look, what is that? There's this whole stand. I can't remember what kind of trees they are. Sorry, I'm not one of those tree guys. Right. But they all got black trunks on them. There's a whole bunch of them. It's in this cow pasture. There's a fence there, barbed wire fence, and just beyond it, there's trees. And it's being used for cow pasture, so there's the ground's fairly beaten down. There's not much brush or anything.
Right.
But here's this other completely different kind of tree shoved through all these trees about 6 feet up. And I mean, it goes through about, at least a half a dozen of them. That's peculiar enough. There's no root ball. There's no hole in the ground where it came from. We went back and filmed this a couple times just to make sure. And if you're down on the far end of it, you can actually see the angle. So anyway, we got the video of it the second time because we wanted to show people exactly what you were just talking about. Because if you get down toward the far end of the fence line where you can get an angle on it, you can see where that thing curves in between all these 6 trees. Not only is it not from there, if it would have been shoved through in a straight line, it would have been like here. And the trees are over there. And it's like, it's making a curve somehow, which is just impossible. And Rich Soul filmed one of those in Colorado.
Okay.
Where there was another completely different tree, was just woven and shoved through this other stand of trees about 6, 7 feet up. And it's like, okay, how the hell does this happen?
Right, exactly. Because of the curve, it can't happen naturally.
Uh-huh.
And it was weird is because both ends of it were sticking out beyond the trees. And you could teeter-totter the ends. But yeah, there's no way that happened naturally. Just no way.
And the other thing is the repeating, we talk about these different structures and stuff, and you get examples of it from all over the world. The researchers that are out there documenting it are going, wait, you found one of those?
Yes.
Yeah, I got a picture of one, or I got a video of one or something. And you're like, are you really?
Right. You got that one in Montana and Colorado, and here's one in, Stuttgart, Germany.
Yeah.
That's just,
really peculiar weather that forms these anomalies.
I know, yeah. The wind was blowing both ways at the same time.
Yeah. I like it when the wind twists a whole bunch of trees into a teepee and intertwines the top together permanently. Sure.
Yes. Yes. The one that was over there in Bubba's area, it was a tree, a pretty tall tree, and it broke in half and was laying like this. And of course, because of the break, there was all kinds of places to lay the next logs that were made this teepee. Who the heck was it that somebody recently had filmed what looked like a small cabin out in the woods with like a bunch of sticks. It was sticks instead of logs. I found 3 of those over there near, actually probably only about 2 miles away from where my prime research area was. And I'm looking at this going, was this done by children or, as a fort? But I think it was in Colorado. Maybe it was Colorado Bigfoot. But that was crazy because there was no nails, no string, nothing. It was like twisted bark around to hold the one stick in a frame, like a big square frame, and then all these other smaller sticks, probably only 2 inches in diameter, propped up against that frame, and all of it was used. The cordage basically was just bark.
Huh.
That had been stripped off and twisted and twisted and twisted, and that was right next to an apartment complex. It was like, oh my goodness, yeah, it was literally right next to an apartment complex. Stettin, the town of Stettin, which was nearby. But I see that, and then I see another one, somebody else's video that filmed the exact same thing on the other side of the world.
Mm-hmm.
It's just nuts.
And those Boy Scouts really get around.
And I don't know if they're using heavy equipment because some of those trees are pretty stout.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the Boy Scouts here in my area, they're using the really heavy equipment. When you start moving 3-ton trees around and making things,
you kind of have to, use a crane or something.
Yeah, I think our theory is that they have about 20 Sherpas and a logging helicopter working with them to make this stuff.
So a friend of mine, his grandfather was a Forstmeister over there. He's retired now, but he filmed some structures and went to lunch with his grandfather, and basically cornered him and said, "Hey, what is this?" It was the same old standby. Oh, the Boy Scouts make those. Yeah. Really? Come on. By the time they got back to their town where he lived, Grandpa stopped talking, wouldn't answer any questions, just nothing. So he obviously had the inside scoop, but just wouldn't even share it with his own grandson.
So that was kind of an uncomfortable ride then.
Yes, yeah, because it was about a 40-minute drive from where Grandpa lived and this restaurant that they went to back over to Innsbruck. So,
and at that point, he wasn't saying nothing.
He said he closed his mouth and he wouldn't make any comment at all.
Not even, I see nothing, I say nothing.
Exactly. Like, what is Sergeant Schultz?
Yeah, exactly.
Hopefully I got that name right because I do have a head injury.
Yeah, no, that was Sergeant Schultz. He always would see and say nothing.
Yeah. Good grief. I just don't understand. I never even knew they had Boy Scouts over there, but apparently they do because they're using the same old standby. Yeah, the Boy Scouts make that. Yeah, they can, 5-ton trees, not a problem. We're going to string it up in the 30 feet up. Come on.
It's amazing what those Boy Scouts can do with their block and tackle and all the other heavy equipment they're hauling around with them.
They need to come up with something a little more imaginative than Boy Scouts.
Something more believable. Well, It works for some parts of the world where they don't have that big of stuff to move around. I mean, they're making whatever's available pressed into service to make structures out of. So if you got smaller trees, you're going to look at it and go, well, a human could have made that. It's entirely possible a human could have made it. But if you're up here where the construction material they got are full-size lodgepole pines, which are weighing about 3 tons apiece, and they're moving those around, that's not Boy Scouts.
No, it is not Boy Scouts.
Or like you've seen, full-size hardwood trees being manipulated or moved around. Yeah.
Yeah, that was crazy. Damn fly.
Yeah, you really got that Nevada fly attacking you down there.
I know. I got my freaking fly swatter right here.
Fly swat.
Comes back, I'm gonna kill that sucker.
Fly swat that little Zero pilot.
All right, we can edit this part out.
Well, if you want to take a break, we can take a break.
Yeah, let's take a break.
Okay. I'd like to see the epic fall down the stairs. That must have been pretty good.
Well, I hit the floor at the top of the landing first. I came around this wall, lost my balance, and went bang right on the, and then I got up and fell forward, and that's what I did. That and this, but
Oh God! So you basically survived
onto
it,
my
and then you
back
killed yourself on the
first.
dismount. Yeah, good
Can you
job.
believe it? I know. It's just like,
Well, it's happened to me before. I was trying to drive one of my friends home who was way too drunk to drive. So I'm driving him home in his car, and we're going around the top of the hill in Duluth, Seven Bridges Road, and there's parts of it where it's like it's a cliff, right?
oh my
And
God.
they've got barrier boulders there to keep you from going off, kind of.
Right. Kind
They
of.
kind of work. So as we're as we're going around this curve and it's nighttime, the road we're on is all dry because it hasn't been exposed to the storm that's right over here that's blowing this way. So when you get to the curve, now it's covered with sleet, and you're
Great.
going right into the barrier boulders, which sort of stopped and kept us from going off the 80-foot cliff. And the
That's a
car
good,
went boom, 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 boom up on its side next to the barrier boulders.
good
And
grief.
like, okay, we're not driving away from this. If we push it over so the wheels are on, it's going over the cliff.
Oh God.
So that's not going to work, right? And
Yeah.
our present problem is that we're both in this car that's sideways. And I'm like, okay, I'm trying to climb out and I'm pushing the door up, and you don't realize how heavy a car door is until you're trying
They're
to press
heavy.
it over your head while you're trying to climb up. So
Yeah.
at some point, you're going to have to hold it up with one hand while you get the other one up to pop your butt out so that you can brace the damn door and swing your legs around. At least that's the theory.
That's the
In
theory.
actual practice, what happens is while you're maneuvering around trying to get enough purchase on the side of the seat that you were sitting in to push the door up, you accidentally end up standing on your friend's face for a little bit, and he isn't too happy about that. And then when you do get the door up and you try and swing your legs around, it comes down and hits you, and you go flying off the car and land on your head on one of the barrier boulders. And if you're really lucky, you don't go off the cliff, your body flops back toward the car, which is
Right.
what happened to me. So then he manages to climb out. It's dark. We're trying to figure out what the hell we could do. We're trying to like grab the car because it's still sleet, right? And we're
Right.
trying to shove it sideways. So if we can get it like sideways far enough, we can turn it back onto the wheels and work it off the boulders and get it to drive again. That's the theory. It's not working. And while I'm pushing on the car, he's got this little flash. A car goes by, and he goes, "What are those marks all over the car?" And I go, "What marks?" So he pulls out his lighter and he's like holding it up. And there's a bloody handprint. And
Oh
he goes,
geez.
"What's making that?" And he goes, "Let me see your hands." And I'm like, "My hands are covered with blood." And he goes, "Where's that coming from?" And he's like, "Oh God, dude, you got like a massive head wound. It's all the way, it's dripping on the ground off my pant legs. There's so
Oh
much
my
blood
God.
coming out of the top of my head." So anyway, long
Were
boring
you
story.
drunk?
No, I was the sober
You
one.
were
He
the
was the
sober
too
one.
drunk to drive one.
Oh my God.
And somebody came by in a car and gave me a ride back to my house. And then the cops tried to arrest him because he was there with his car wrecked and he was drunk.
He was
And
drunk.
he hadn't driven it, so they had to contact me. And I went, "No, I was the driver. I got hurt, and they had to bring me back here. I was trying to get him home. He wasn't driving, you know."
Holy smokes.
So yeah, that was one of the many times that, got seriously mangled and somehow survived it. That's my excuse for all the stupid things I do, falling on a boulder and breaking my head open.
Right. Oh my gosh. All the things that I went through that I don't even know how the heck I survived it. I really don't. Anything from, scarlet fever to bike wrecks and a wheel falling off of a car at speed on the interstate. I just over and over and over again. And then, of course, heart attack. Well, that one did kill me, but they jump started me and got me back.
Got you working again.
But that was nuts.
Do you think all the times you got zapped had anything to do with your heart damage? Because now that I've had a chance to ask a lot more questions and find out just what they can do with zapping, and Robin seems to know a lot about that, and it's like, oh man, can they do a lot of things with that? They can confuse you. Now you're walking in a circle thinking you're walking in a straight line.
Yes.
They confuse you enough that you just don't notice that they're there with a light.
I didn't even know my right hand from my left hand most of the time, literally. But the worst part of, and I think that it probably had something to do with the heart damage, because I'd had a couple of heart attacks, but that while I was in the States, but they got the blood flow restored, not a problem. And when I get to Germany, I was pretty much okay until I started going out in the field, and then I started having heart attack after heart attack after heart attack. Ultimately ended up in a triple bypass. But yeah, I absolutely do believe that I don't know, man. I think we're just not supposed to mess with these guys. But the worst part was when I would get zapped, sometimes I would end up spending 2 days in bed after going to the field. And the very first, that morning whiz, blood, like lots of blood. So, unless I had passed a kidney stone, while I was asleep,
and
there couldn't be any blood. Yeah. And you do not pass them without knowing it. Those hurt.
Oh, I know.
Those really hurt.
I know. I know. I had to go to the hospital and have the ultrasonic zap done to break one up that wouldn't go.
Yeah, the lithotripter.
Yeah. We zapped like 3,000 times for some ridiculous one. Kill him?
I think so.
Unless he resurrects, that usually happens.
I know.
Another one shows up. Damn it! What's your respawn time?
Right. God. But yeah, I just there was a lot of health problems, and not just the heart and the kidneys, but like weird bone spurs that started growing and was cutting tendons. So
weird.
All kinds of really weird health stuff that I had never experienced before. And I haven't experienced it since, because I'm not going to the field anymore. So, between all the other researchers that had passed away under really, really weird circumstances, I decided, quite a while ago that I think I want to live a little longer. This just isn't a very healthy endeavor. So.
Yeah, and you start having problems like, well, on the positive side, and this is, according to Robin and one other person I know that interacts with them, basically verified it too. Like I said, they can do all kinds of different things with their zap, whether it's infrasound or there's some other energy that they're zapping you with.
Right.
And they can not only disorient you and confuse you, but can make you barf your guts out. And
that's what happened to my
blast your pants with a brown hurricane. Yep. They can do both at once. And if they really don't like you, they can just make your heart stop.
And that doesn't sound like much fun. But the weird part about it was she and I both got zapped at the same time. And her response was projectile vomiting. My response was like, I suddenly didn't have any blood pressure. Boom, down I went. But
that's probably what they did to Papa Craig. It was about this time last year when we had him over here. And no, that was about a month ago. It was warmer last year. Although we could still see our breath when we were driving up to the campsite. So there were still snowbanks there. It was warmer. Anyway, we were walking. It was early in the morning. Sun had just come up, and we were walking up the path next to the river. And all of a sudden, he just goes, "Duke, I can't go any further." And
wow.
I went, what? And I turned around. He's like right behind me, and he's just rubber leg about to go down. He's like, I don't know what's happening. Maybe I'm having a heart attack. I need to get back to camp. I'm like, okay, can you make it? Yeah, I can make it back to camp. And he's not doing very well. And it's only like 70, 80 feet. He's got to go back this little trail to get back to camp. So he goes and sits down, and I kind of looped around and came back. And apparently he got zapped. That's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
Because he sat there for about 20 minutes, got reoriented, and he goes, I've had a heart attack before. That isn't what this feels like.
Right. Yeah.
And then he went, I need some rest. I'm going to go lay down in the tent. I went, you okay? And he's like, yeah, I should be okay. Well, as soon as he got away from me and laid down in the tent, he got hit by the wall of dread.
Oh, God.
Suddenly got hit by the wave of terror. He doesn't, and here's the other thing that you hear from witnesses that have had this happen in their tent. I'm utterly terrified. Something's going to get me. And then I went to sleep.
What. Yes.
Then I went to sleep. How in the bleep do you go to sleep when you're terrified?
I don't know, but
And here's the other thing. I'm sitting 30 feet away from him in a chair in camp by myself. Everybody else is asleep. I got my back to the woods and I fall asleep in my chair. I'm not being, no terror's hitting me. He's getting nailed by it.
that is exactly what happened to me during that first face-to-face that I had up there in the Sierras. There was like a growl or a rumble of some sort that actually, vibrated my organs and my ribs. And I have never experienced fear. Yeah, I'm a combat vet, a lot of them. And I've never experienced fear like that. It was worse than even when my son got hit right in front of me by a car when he was 7 years old. This was insane. Dread, terror, complete overwhelming fear. And, it's fight or flight. I fight. Yeah. So out comes the pistol and I'm ready to go to war. But
the stark
I didn't know what was I going to go to war against. I had no idea, but God, I was scared. Absolutely flippin' petrified.
Don't feel bad. I've heard that from other combat vets before too, that are like, I faced down a battalion of fill in the blank, blah, blah, by myself. And I ran into Bigfoot and I crapped my pants and ran away screaming like a little girl.
Right.
There's just something they can project that. It's not just because they're big and scary. It's because they could project that on you too. And they seem to be able to do multiple versions of it because that was like pinpoint targeting on him. Right. They were doing that to him for some reason. And I've had it before where you walk into an area and everything seems fine. You take one step forward, all of a sudden terror.
Yes.
You take a step back, it stops.
Yes.
You take a step forward, it starts again. It's like, okay, what have they got this wall of terror around this area or something? What's going on here?
Right. One of the weirdest things that I had happen up in the Sierras was me and my partner had gone up to this one particular place up near Kybers, and there was like a big boulder buried in the ground. Just the top of it was visible. So he grabs this massive flipping river rock and starts banging on the top of this boulder. Well, it's like sending shockwaves out through the dirt like crazy. And we had one show up, but it was across the creek from us, and that's where my truck was parked.
Oh, crap.
Yeah, so we could see it jumping from tree to tree and then trying to work its way down to the creek. Well, we go over there and we don't see it. So we're sitting there by the tailgate, and all of a sudden we're in like this, like when the woods go silent.
Uh-huh.
There was what looked like a big one laying behind this stump in this grass. And he says, shoot it. And I said, I'm not going to shoot it. He says, well, shoot the stump then. So I stepped forward and pulled my 12 gauge with slugs in it out of the back seat. And I took one more step and the woods came alive again. And then I stepped back and it was silent. It's like we were in a bubble. I don't know, how big they can make that bubble, but when those woods go silent, keep walking because you might come out of it. And that is a very weird experience, disorienting, confusing. I mean, really confusing because you don't expect that. But I bet it was that one that was, jumping from tree to tree that did it. But that was a very confusing thing. And another time I had up there in the Sierras in the same area, I was probably 5 miles from the truck. Actually, I had the Jeep then. And I don't use GPSs because I honestly, I don't know how the heck they work. Well, I know how they work, but like the handhelds and stuff like that for hikers and hunters. Um, I was,
Compass and
trained.
azimuth.
I was trained to use, the topo maps and a compass.
Yeah.
So I go to shoot I'm standing next to this teepee, and I go to shoot a back azimuth to the truck or Jeep, and it starts spinning. The needle starts spinning. I'm like, what the heck? That was probably the first weirdness that ever happened to me. I stepped away from the teepee and I got the needle stabilized. Walked back and the thing started spinning. I'm going, what the heck? I mean, what kind of a weird anomaly is this? And I had no idea because, at the time I was running around the woods looking for a, North American ape or something, because that's what the experts said was going on. 9 years I was looking for an ape and had almost like zero interactions. And as soon as I started acknowledging the weirdness, it was like somebody opened a floodgate, and it was pretty much more than I could handle, because that was just way too much. But yeah, they are strange. They are strange, whatever they are. Strange people, I would say.
Yeah.
They have their own language. They have, But yeah.
They're giant, hairy mountain nudists.
Right.
So anyway, the one of the things that's come in through a whole bunch of different researchers now that are all independently looking at this and not really noticing the other guys are doing similar stuff, and they're all coming up with the same result, is, like you said, compass spinning, EM meters firing off, trying to walk into a structure and having your camera turn off.
Yes.
Yeah, we've documented all this kind of stuff before. And, that one piece of video we were mentioning earlier where the background changed, that was right next to a giant teepee.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So it makes me wonder if, because of their capabilities, they can sense probably where ley lines and node points and all that kind of stuff are, where there's an energy disturbance in the ground. And if they're setting up some of these structures basically to be like collectors or amplifiers for that kind of energy, because I can't remember where it came from, but somebody reported they were watching a teepee, and as they were watching it, 3 Bigfoot came walking up. One of them walked in, flash of light, disappeared. Repeat. All 3 of them were gone. He was just dumbfounded and just sat there. And like half an hour later, flash, one walks out, flash, another one walks out, flash, another one walks out.
That was why I told my sister-in-law, if you walk under there and you end up in Detroit, it ain't my fault. I'm just letting you know.
Rumor has it they are inhabiting some of the abandoned buildings in outside Detroit now, so they could have a portal there.
There's a lot of them out there now. But God, it's just the stuff that they can do is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it reminds me of that one mini movie, Fistful of Yen, where they had, it was a takeoff Enter the Dragon, and they had captured the infiltrator in Dr. Klun's fortress. And they brought him in front of Dr. Klun. He's like, what are you going to do? Torture me? I'm a trained CIA agent. I'm not afraid of you, Klun. There's nothing you can do to scare me. I'm not going to talk. And Dr. Klun goes, take him to Detroit. And he's like, no, not that. Anything but Detroit. Oh, God, no.
Not Detroit, anything but Detroit. Oh, my God.
Classic. So, yeah, the other thing that I think you wanted to talk a little bit about, if I remember right, is he was talking about some of the mental ability stuff. Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of jerks? The Shadow knows.
Yeah.
So, of course, the Shadow character could be invisible, but he wasn't really invisible. He just had like mesmeric powers.
Right.
Like,
that's what I think may be happening.
And according to the old books on it and stuff, the people that are carrying on the traditions and stuff, that was one of the things the ninja also trained for, to know where your blind spots were, know when to move, when not to move. Some of them had the ability to like hypnotize you and make you think they weren't there when they were, and that was the Shadow's power.
Back in the teams, we did the same thing, except the mesmerizing. We didn't do that. We just shoot them, but the it's just the mental powers that they have. How do you like even train again, for something like that? There was a I never posted it because it was just like, it was too weird. I'm in a different part of the forest on the other side of a ridge line from where I would normally be. And I went in, camera running like I always do, start turning that thing on from the car. And as I walked into this tree line, there was a blind where the bottom branches of a big pine tree had been pulled down and staked out to the ground. That was wild. That was like the first thing I saw. And as I walked in a little further, something happened to me where best I can say is it was like an out-of-body experience. But it wasn't like my out-of-body experience, because I'm looking down at myself from a height of probably 10 feet but this is the memory, right? As I'm narrating, and there were tracks. There was a big trackway right there with 17-inch tracks, and it was leading down to this creek. When I get to the creek, there's a blind set up there because there's a trail just on the other side of it where people go walking and doing their nature stuff. There was a blind there.
So you think it was an observation blind for them to amuse themselves watching the stupid humans walking along the other side? We found that stuff up there where our area is too. There's all these campsites. Yeah, there's all these campsites along this river. They've been there for decades. They've got blinds set up on the far side of the river of every single one of them.
Yeah. The weirdest thing about, I'm disabled, so one thing I would never do is run from them. I've been face to face, and I don't like it, but I've been there. The one thing I would never do is actually run from them, because you can't outrun.
Pointless. Yeah.
It really is. That's the next thing I remember, was getting back up to the top of the hill, huffing and puffing like crazy. I have absolutely no idea what happened. So I go to check the video footage. There was about a minute and a half recorded. That was it. There was the blinds when I first walked in, where there was butt prints in the dirt and like heel kicks, where they had dug out from their heels, and everything after that it just wasn't recorded. It's like they shut the camera off. But then they did something to me, almost like yanking me out of the body, stuffing it into one of them, which I know that sounds like, absolutely insane. But I was watching myself during that entire time until I ended up running back to where my car was. It's one of those things I wish the camera had been running, because I would have, it probably would have scared the crap out of me, to be honest. I don't know what happened. I really have no idea what happened, but they did something. They did something to my brain that I just, I couldn't remember anything other than watching myself during this whole time. Was it a false memory? I don't know. I'll tell you what, I never went back to that part of the forest again. I was done. Yeah,
that sounds really spooky. Apparently they were just playing with you and making sure you left. So I wouldn't go back to that area again.
Well, what was weird is that walking trail that went right by it. I mean, even people in wheelchairs were going through there, because it was a really good, well-made trail. But this is terrible. I see one guy pushing another guy in a wheelchair down this trail, and I go, "Oh, look, Meals on Wheels." Just, oh God. Right? I know.
Oh, it's a good thing Germans don't taste good.
You're right? Yeah, because too much sauerkraut.
That's it. Yeah, too much good beer ruins.
Yeah, that too. Ooh, I do miss that.
Now, one of your observations about the Bigfoot in Germany as compared to over here that I thought was amusing was just how they react to the norms of human behavior. Since humans don't walk off trails over there, they can be right next to the damn things. Nobody will find them. Yeah.
because the structures were literally next to the trail. And I'm looking at this going, what on, but because they don't walk off trail, and they know it, if you're willing to walk off trail, yeah, you experience all kinds of craziness. I mean,
I bet you get special attention. Ooh, a human that walks in the woods.
yeah.
Check him out. No, he's from the U.S. No wonder.
Yeah, the weirdest thing though was the difference in their like aggression. They didn't really have a whole lot of that over there. And I don't know if it's because guns are illegal. There's nobody's armed out there.
Right.
And
Yeah, and that's the other thing. When there's
Oh.
little to no chance that a human's going to take a random shot at them, they can relax a hell of a lot more than the ones over here can.
They really can. And, because of that, I was able to get close on several occasions. Except, the one I called Big Red. He didn't like me much, but only because I charged him, because he was getting ready to charge me.
I think we should officially change his name to Mr. Zappy.
Yeah, absolutely. Because most of the time when I got zapped, it was over on that side of the meadow.
Yep.
His area.
Yeah, you told me the other Alpha and his troop didn't seem to mind if you were there. He'd even sit there and have staring competitions with you and stuff too.
Yeah, that was Bubba. That was weird. That was really weird. Just don't bring the camera up, and you can sit there and check him out.
Yeah.
But I don't know if he was still around when I left, because the last time I went in there, I was basically saying goodbye because I was getting ready to ship out. I know that the Alpha, whoever it is off in this direction. I could feel it. I got two of them behind me that I can't see that are like mimicking and talking to me and getting really insistent and loud as I go walking towards the teepee. I got another one off on this side breaking branches like crazy that I couldn't see. But I got, Kreider called it infra thump. And whether it's infrasound or not, I don't know. But as I was getting ready to leave, there was like a grunt / huff that came from that direction where the Alpha was. And it hit me in the chest like somebody taking a fist and just punching the heck out of me right dead center in the chest. And I had never experienced that before. But I'll tell you what, I said, okay, time to go, bye. And I got the heck out of there. That was weird. So when he mentioned that during that interview with you, the infra thump, I go, hey, that happened to me over there.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, it felt just like being punched in the chest, like hard. It like knocked me back. And it was just sound, or I don't know. I was out metal detecting, so I didn't have any of my gear with me. That was crazy. That was really crazy.
Did it feel like a physical blow?
It felt like exactly like a physical blow, but the sound was probably 50 yards away that I heard this
right
puff noise. But boom, I mean, like within a second of hearing that noise, I got popped right in the chest.
I don't know if you caught the episode of Bigfoot Michigan Rob on my show where he was talking about his experience where he was in the boat with his girlfriend and they were quite a ways offshore, and this one showed up on shore and just screamed at him. And he said its face distorted and looked like some kind of a horrible demon when it did it. And his girlfriend fell out of the back of the boat into the water.
Good grief.
And he could see ripples going across the surface of the water as it was infrablasting them.
Good grief. How do they do that? Can you imagine having that kind of a ability?
Oh yeah, well, we're not allowed because we'd misuse it all the time, you know.
Yeah.
Somebody from Welcome Wagon would show up at the door and you'd infrablast them, and
yep,
it would be bad. Infra thump.
Yeah, right.
Kids infra thumping each other in the classroom all the time.
Teacher getting smacked against the blackboard. Yeah, that was very strange. So yeah, I was able to experience it. That was another one of the things that he'd mentioned that I had experienced over there, but that was like the first time that anything like that happened. The majority of the other stuff was like the the dread and fear, weird stuff happening to electronics, the EM detector like just going off like crazy with really high readings.
They usually leave my camera alone. One weird thing I experienced with it is I always have a backup battery in my pocket. It's got these little specialty batteries, right, that slot into it. So I'm sitting there trying to film something, and it says, battery dead. And I'm like, what? I just charged that thing. Yes, right. So I pull it out, and I take the one out of my pocket, and I put that one in, and it says battery dead.
Right.
Like, well, that one hasn't even been used, and I just charged it yesterday. So I'm like, okay, you guys, quit screwing with my camera. And I reach back in my pocket, and I pull out the first one that it said was dead, and I put it in, and the camera works fine.
Yes. I had that happen too. Because I used to carry 4 batteries, and I had quite a few, electronic issues when they would show up.
Well, my point here isn't that they drained the batteries; it's they made you think the batteries were drained when they still were fine.
So you see the flashing red, and you're like, "What the heck?" So
yeah,
pull the battery out, stick it in my other pocket, pull one out, put it back in, and it's good, and we're working. And 5 minutes later, it's dead. What the heck? You pull it out, stick it back in the pocket. But later on, I go, I wonder, and I'm putting the batteries back in. It's showing full charge or 3/4 of charge. I'm going, what on earth? I mean, this is yeah. I've had that happen a lot over there, which is why I carried so many spare batteries.
That's one of the things that's confusing about it, because they can actually drain the batteries down to nothing too, and it literally is dead.
Yes.
But they can also apparently do this little trick. They make you think the battery's dead, but it isn't dead, or they dampen it temporarily so you give up and pull it out.
In which case, the camera goes off and they can move.
Yeah. Blaine Tyler experienced that too. It was winter, and he was going to do this little monologue from one of his areas in the middle of frosty nowhere up there in northern Ontario. And he's got his tripod set up, and he's all ready to do the little narration. As soon as he starts talking, the camera turns off. It's got a full battery, so he goes over and checks it, and it's like the battery's fine. It just turned off. So he turns it back on again. He walks over into position. He starts doing the narration again. The camera turns itself off. This happened like 4 times before he managed to actually get it recorded. And he had the same reaction too. He's like, you guys quit screwing with me. I'm just trying to record this little thing.
Right.
Well, was there anything else you wanted to mention, or?
Yeah, don't fall downstairs. It hurts.
Don't fall down the stairs. That hurts. Don't crash your motorcycle. That hurts.
Yeah. Don't
get drug off in a tent by a Sasquatch. That hurts.
Do that. That's scary. That is really scary. Unfortunately, I never actually got to see it, so I don't know that it was a Sasquatch. But when it ran off, you could hear the feet slapping.
Well, and whatever it was big enough to pick up you in the tent and run off with you.
Exactly.
No, and it went up some steep terrain and almost dropped off a cliff when it flopped you on the ground there, right?
Yep. Yeah, it literally took me up about a 70 degree grade to the top up in the forest, because that area had been bulldozed and cut, and they turned it into a campground, or a camping spot actually. And it just straight up the hill. So I laid down, and there was a scratch, like a big fat finger scratching in the corner of the tent, and then a hand just grabbed it and off we went. I was off to the races.
So you were making enough noise at this point that the other guys in camp, also hardened military veterans, heavily armed, came awake.
Yep, and came out looking to see what the heck was going on. And literally within seconds, I'm about 75 yards away from the campground or camp spot up on the top of this hill. And I know it's none of them because they're all coming out of the tent. I'm looking way down at the camp, and here they are coming out of it. And I had heard big sounding slapping feet run away. So I squealed like a little girl, man. I squealed like I ain't even ashamed to say.
Did any of them catch sight of anything when they got out, or nope?
No,
too late.
Fortunately, yeah, because it was me, and all my gear was like basically jumbled up. It took me a while to get out of my tent. And so I'm unzipping and looking down, and here they are coming out of the tent. Or their tents, but
So he had you all in a big tangle, just like a Bauman burrito. You must
basically,
have heard of the legendary Bauman burrito.
yes, exactly. So yeah, I had weapons and camp gear and cooking utensils, and I mean it was a mess. That was really a mess. So we ended up pulling guard duty the rest of the night, and as soon as
I bet.
first light, we got the heck out of there.
Well, I'm just glad nothing happened to you, man.
Me too.
You could have got hurt really bad with him screwing around with you like that.
Really could have.
Did he actually pick you off the ground? Were you getting banged into the ground at all, or what?
Well, he just grabbed the corner of it was like one of those little dome tents.
Yeah.
But where the corners are all reinforced, he just grabbed that, or it just grabbed it, and just dragged me. I mean, but as soon as it started to go up the hill, I, of course, I'm tumbling backwards into all my stuff that I have in the tent, which was probably about an extra 200 pounds of gear. And here I got a 45 in my hand, but I have no idea which direction to shoot because I am in a pile of stuff. And I just the best thing I could do was scream. That was it.
Oh my God.
And I let go and ran off. So
you're getting shorter again.
I'm getting shorter again. I can't tell because my picture's frozen.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, actually, your picture is frozen too.
Uh-oh. Well, it still looks good on this end. Maybe we better cut her off here before we actually lose everything. And I think we got most of what we wanted to get.
There we go. Now I'm moving again. I shut the camera off for a second.
Okay. Yeah, you got a camera switch.
Yeah. Yeah, and you do too because you're frozen on my side. So, oh well, that's okay as long as it's recording and you see movement.
I think we got everything we were going to talk about. I can't remember anything else that you mentioned.
Yeah, I don't. One of these days, that thing's going to show up again. I'm going to be like, 0.5 and 6. Those were important. I don't know what they were, but.
Well, hopefully it'll be long enough to make another show out of.
You're right.
Meanwhile, I know you want to get out and go motorcycle ride with your gorgeous blonde today.
For a bike ride.
And judging by how you're almost like passing out a couple times while you're trying to record, time to go have head injury checked out, bud.
I know, right? I probably have a brain bleed or something.
Yeah, you probably have definitely have TBI because you're like you're doing the nod-op like narcolepsy.
I've had a TBI before from a bike wreck. So.
Yep.
Oh well.
Now you got another one. Well, this can be extremely dangerous when it happens when you're driving and you go in the ditch and die.
And what's weird is it only happens when I'm just like sitting still or talking, Susie and I will be talking and then she'll look over and I'm like, I'm unconscious. And we were carrying on a conversation and this all happened after the fall.
Yeah, you have head injury. You go see a doctor now.
I mean, I have a crease.
Yeah, I know. This is one of those things that, just like when Lisa was explaining this to Homer Simpson. Dad, right. I think this is one of those things you do need to go see the doctor for.
Right. Don't. Oh man. Yeah, it's weird. But once I'm up and moving, like writing or washing dishes or whatever, nothing.
So far.
Sit down. Yeah, and she's got this like really soothing voice. It's really soft, and that just puts me right to sleep. But only after the tumble down the stairs. So I probably should go get it checked out. I have a doctor's appointment here in a couple of weeks, so maybe I can hold out that long.
Yeah, maybe you want to go see one a little bit sooner than that. Dad, this is one of those things where you might want to go see the doctor a little sooner than that.
Right. That means going through the emergency room at the VA hospital and yeah.
Emergency VA. 2 days.
I'd literally sit there for 2 days and there wouldn't be anybody in the waiting room. Just nobody available. So I don't know, we'll see. If I start to get really weird, she'll point it out, and then the 20th. So I don't know what today is.
12th. That's not that far up. You should hopefully survive that long.
Old man death, he gave up on me.
Yeah, he'll show up about 10 minutes after you're buried and go, wow, he's actually dead this time.
Right?
Who managed to pull this miracle off?
Right. So yeah, we're gonna go check out Urington. We'll see if we can find a house. Because these, her apartment down there, my apartment up here, it sucks.
Right
It's
on.
too far away. When I first met her, my bike had 6,600 miles on it. I'm about to turn 10,000 miles on the odometer, back and forth, 30 miles at a time. Jesus.
Yeah. Well, she's pretty. I would definitely put a lot of mileage
And
on
she's
too with it.
sweet. That's
And
the
she's
thing.
sweet.
She is really sweet.
Yeah.
And stubborn as heck.
Yeah.
Just like.
That's good. She might be the one that'll be like, okay, Robert, this head injury thing is one of those things you need to actually look into.
Right? Yeah, she's stubborn enough to force my hand in it. So
that would be a good thing. All right, well, let's quit talking about hideous injuries and let everybody go here. Thanks for being on the show again. And everybody else, you know the drill. Here it comes. So make sure that you're kind to everyone. Safety first, last, and always. Pay it forward. Don't be mean to people if you don't have to be. Don't flip off the mountain giant. Don't poke Dogman with a stick. Don't punt the puck, would you? And for God's sake, whatever you do not hug the Wookiee.